Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Peter Michelin, Workforce Initiatives Program Coordinator. It's nice to see you all again. I hope some of you are just coming out of the session with Brent Wilkes and Diego Dielenschneider, Antonio Tijerino, and Jessica Rosenworcel. We are now going to hear more from our community-based organizations who are part of the Digital Accelerator, and we're going to learn more about their unique approaches to digital skilling and also just gain their perspective on what needs to be done and the work that they are doing. First up is the CEO and co-founder of the Knowledge House based in the Bronx, New York, Jarolyn Rodriguez. Jarolyn, I'm going to share your presentation now.
Hi, everyone.
Get started.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
We're happy to have you. And there you go. All right, all good.
Okay, perfect. So, the Knowledge House has the mission to empower and sustain a talent pipeline of technologists coming from low-income communities, and we started this work in the Bronx. You'll hear me talk about how this year we're expanding nationally. And if you go to the next slide, Peter, here's a little bit about who we are. So we co-founded the Knowledge House in 2014, and it was really important for us to start this in the Bronx because 7 years ago, my co-founder and I didn't find enough tech activities, programs, awareness in the Bronx. And, we started the Knowledge House during a time where tech was trending. We saw government investments, for example, in computer science for all, launched from the Department of Education, and the Department of Small Business Services had launched the Tech Talent Pipeline Initiative. But years ago, those programs were not reaching Bronx residents. And so we wanted to make sure that we can launch tech training programs so that Bronx residents were not left out of the innovation economy. Next slide, please. So as a lot of you are familiar, the South Bronx is one of the poor congressional districts in the country. There's a very high percentage of young people who are out of school and out of work. And so we think that if we can have a proven workforce development model in the Bronx, we can bring it anywhere in the country. And of course, on the flip side, for employers, they're looking for diverse talent. A lot of them are trying to diversify their workforce, disrupt traditional hiring practices. And so the Knowledge House provides a pipeline of diverse talent for them. Next slide. So these are the two core programs that we provide at the Knowledge House. And last year, we received a grant from the Hispanic Federation to support our core programs. The Innovation Fellowship is a 12-month program for 18 and up folks that are adults looking to pursue full-time careers in tech. And students have options to pursue data science occupational training, where they learn Python, full stack web development, where they learn JavaScript. And this year, we're launching a new UX UI program that focuses on design skills and a new cybersecurity program. The second program focuses on upskilling high school students that are interested in tech careers. It's called the Kareem Carbush Coding Fellowship Program, and it was actually co-founded by a hip hop artist from the Bronx called French Montana. He was really interested in supporting immigrant youth because he himself is an immigrant from Morocco. And so this program provides a crash course in STEAM skills. So students actually learn coding and graphic design, a little bit of video production, and we expose them to college and non-college pathways in tech. Next slide. So this is some info about our fellows. Internally, we try to make sure that at least 75% of our programs include 14 to 35-year-olds in both of those programs. We do accept any adult learner that's 18 and up for the Innovation Fellowship, but for the most part, we want to serve young people. When my co-founder and I started the Knowledge House, we learned that about 80% of our adult learners had dropped out of college. And so we think it's really important to give youth a lot of access so that they can decide what college or alternative post-secondary education to pursue. And for our adults, whether they are stopping out of college or coming from other nonprofit training programs, if they need a second or third chance, then the Knowledge House opens our doors to them. Most of our students are people of color, and the vast majority are coming from immigrant families, whether they're foreign born or children of immigrants. And finally, 60% of our students identify as Latinx. 3 months after graduation, fellows from both of these programs will gain employment, starting with a 3-month tech internship for the adult learners that will lead to full-time employment. And for high school students, it's a tech internship, or we support them as they matriculate into college and have plans to pursue computer science or another STEM degree. Next slide. So these are a lot of the companies that have hired our fellows, and this is just a short list. So you can see that the Knowledge House graduates have gained employment at Fortune 100 companies or startups and even government agencies like the Department of Education. The starting salaries for our recent class started at $80,000. And students really come to us with an average wage of $15,000. So we're talking about students tripling, quadrupling their income after our programs. And on the next slide, I want to show you all a specific example of how we partner with companies. So throughout the year, right, because our job training programs are 12 months long, it gives us a lot of time to engage with companies via volunteer engagements, right? A lot of these companies have community service requirements or options for their employees. A lot of these corporations especially might have their funds to, invest in racial equity work, or they give out grants. And so the Knowledge House engages with these companies throughout the year in multiple ways. And these engagements often lead to grants and employment opportunities. Specifically, we launched something called the Fellowship Campaign, which is an annual fundraiser, and it allows us to partner with corporations in really meaningful ways. So we offer them sponsor benefits depending on how much funding they provide us. And those benefits include custom volunteer partnerships, slots on our tech advisory boards or on our actual board of directors, speaking engagements at future fundraiser events. And all of this work really builds our relationships with employers so that they commit to hiring our students in the long term. Distillery is one of these partners. Distillery in 2019 started volunteering through career talks for our students. That same year, they provided us with an end of year grant as part of their DEI initiative. And then in 2020, they hired Franklin, one of our 2019 graduates from the data science class. And Franklin started out as a 3-month intern and was invited after the successful internship to be a full-time data analyst at Distillery. So here is a post from Distillery welcoming Franklin to the team. And this quote here is by Gilad. He's the VP of analytics there, and he's also a member of our Tech Advisory Council. So you can see how we partner with companies to make sure that all of the engagement leads to direct support for students, whether it's funding, volunteering, employment, and we also, besides our programs, try to match all of our job trainees to a mentor that works in the industry. Next slide. Here's our impact to date. We are 7 years old. We are very excited to be transitioning away from startup into sustainability mode. We have 30 part-time and full-time staff. 90% of our staff identify as people of color. We have an 85% graduation rate for the almost 1,900 students we have served. And 3 out of 4 of our adult graduates that have completed our job training programs, 75% of them secure their first job in tech after the Knowledge House. And I want to actually pause here to talk a little bit about how COVID impacted our plans, right? Because last year, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a lot of financial challenges. We had to slash our budget, we had to freeze hiring, let go of a lot of consultants. And so I think for the first 3 months of the pandemic, we were kind of like lost. We didn't know what was gonna happen. And luckily, we were one of the few nonprofits in the Bronx to get a PPP loan. And that PPP loan and a surge of funding and increase in corporate giving, especially after the murder of George Floyd, really helped us survive the pandemic and thrive heading into 2021. And so last year was actually the year where we had raised the most funding in our history, and we're so grateful for that. It means that this year we are poised to expand nationally, and I'd love to talk about that next. So this year we are expanding and accepting applications from folks in Newark, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. And we chose these 3 cities for multiple reasons. Number one, there is a lot of need, just like there's a lot of need in New York City. So we chose cities where at least 40% of the population is Black or brown, right? We also wanted to go to cities where there's an existing or growing tech ecosystem. For example, Newark is so close to New York City, they share the same labor market. So we know that with the growth of tech jobs in New York City, residents in Newark can also benefit from that. Atlanta has a booming startup ecosystem, and they are hiring technologists. And LA also has a growth specifically in digital media jobs coming from the entertainment and media industry. We wanted to go to cities where it's not overly saturated with tech programs because we want to add value to the ecosystem instead of being repetitive or duplicative. And so you'll see on the next slide that our approach is to partner with local community-based organizations on the ground. And so what we hope to do in the coming months is set up satellite offices, classrooms, or satellite sites at these community-based organizations. They would host us, right? And we would form a mutually beneficial partnership where the Knowledge House can upskill those participants that the community-based organization already serves. And our partners would be able to support us with wraparound services, free or discounted classroom space, and together we would go ahead and mobilize funders and employers in those regions. Next slide. These are some of our supporters and partners. So very thankful for all of the folks that help our programs, our students, and help us, keep things moving, including Hispanic Federation. And on the next slide, you'll see a snippet of a bunch of news features. So we have been very grateful that folks have been telling our story, and it's been helping us get more applications and more support. So I would love to conclude by just stating what's next for us. So in addition to national expansion, we are really being responsive to increased demand for digital training programs. Since the pandemic, applications to our programs have doubled. So last year, applications doubled, and this year we had about 750 applications for 150 slots. And so there are more people just interested in tech training. However, we found that a lot of these applicants didn't have enough web fluency and digital literacy skills to persist through our admissions process and to be ready for the program. So to solve that problem and be responsive to the demand from job seekers and employers, we are going to launch a series of digital literacy workshops for job seekers, for youth, for parents, for entrepreneurs, so that everyone has access and exposure to these opportunities. We know that beyond tech jobs, right now, at least in New York City, 50% of all open jobs require strong digital skills. These are not only tech jobs, these are 50% of all jobs. And so to us, closing the digital divide means that all people have access to these opportunities, to these programs. And all people know the occupations to pursue in tech so that they're not left out of the growing tech ecosystem that is not going anywhere and is pretty much fail-proof. So we're excited to partner with all of you as we expand our programs, reach more students, and close the digital divide. And thank you all for your time. And thank you, Hispanic Federation and their supporters, for investing in us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Geraldine, for that presentation. I see we do have some questions. We'll try to get to a few of them. The first one, you sort of touched a bit about it at the end there. It's, Geraldine, how did you and your team manage the distractions that many candidates from low-income backgrounds experience? For many, when they need that $10 an hour job to make ends meet, how are you helping them stay focused on completing the program? That's a good question.
That's a great question because, we were lucky that we actually made our programs longer right before the pandemic. And so the program model was providing more supports during COVID. For example, in addition to the instructor, students meet with the case specialist that really help them persist. That case specialist is checking in monthly or every 2 weeks on attendance rates, assignment completion, and the GPA to make sure that students are on track to graduate. And if not, they're matching them to tutoring or wraparound services. We also fundraised last year to provide cash assistance to students. Historically, our students come to us underemployed, but since COVID, they, for the most part, are unemployed or furloughed. So we were able to give them $200 to $300 a month, and that really helps with basic living expenses.
Okay, great. And Nilda Borrero says, loves this knowledge house. Is there an extension for option for older adults in the near future, like 49 to 55 age group who have made a career change?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, our target population is 14 to 35 years old, but the Innovation Fellowship is open to anyone who is 18 or up. It means that in the same classroom, a 65-year-old might be studying with a 22-year-old, and it has worked for us. And so we are really proud. We have served multiple generations. We have siblings, one in the high school program and then one in the adult program, that have graduated and have pursued tech careers. So we've seen it happen, and we're inclusive of folks all ages.
Great. Another comment says, Geraldine, this is amazing work. Is this program available only to Bronx residents?
Great question. So starting this year, we are making the program available to anyone in New York State, anyone in Atlanta, Los Angeles, and Newark. Next year, we might start adding new regions. So if anyone is interested in bringing our programs to them, just drop me an email at jrodriguez@theknowledgehouse.org, because we are looking for some expansion partners now.
Great. And I do see someone wanted to ask a question on the mic. So Elvis Santana, I'm going to let him do it. Let's see if he turns it on. His camera on. Elvis?
Hey, how's it
going?
There
you go. Hi. Go ahead.
I'll make this short so everyone else can ask their questions. I'm also a South Bronx resident, and I was a CBO director within a DOE school. What we did is similar to what you did as well, is having to integrate that learning kind of tech within the curriculum, though. So most of our students actually had a class session that included Microsoft credentials program. Which we saw it at the end that because of that, they performed better than the other students as well. I'm curious, do you have any kind of data to show that the students or any participants in your program performed better than the students that did not have any kind of tech experience within high schools or middle schools?
That's a great question, Elvis, because we do see that happen, right? And it's something that we're trying to solve for. When I'm talking about closing the digital divide and making our opportunities inclusive for all, it means meeting folks where they're at. And so you do see, for example, I mentioned that 80% of Knowledge House adult learners drop out of college. It just so happens that a college dropout that has started studying IT and has some technology background, when they enter the Knowledge House, they are being upskilled more than the person that is starting from the start, you know? And it just so happens that that person that comes in with more tech knowledge than the other students, they might get picked up by an employer sooner than the others. That's why we made our program longer. It's 1 year long, understanding that 1 year is enough to get a beginner ready for their first day at work. But those that have some experience, whether they studied technology on their own, or they're taught themselves coding, or they're just like YouTube vloggers and they're interested in technology, you know, they might be considered early exits, right? From this program currently, we had 5 students that landed full-time jobs before the program ended. And we see that as a good thing.
Thank you. And then I just hope to encourage, as a post-pandemic result, see if any of your participants actually excelled even despite this distant learning or absent learning through the school closure. I'm interested in that data as well. I'm going to drop the mic to let others talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Elvis.
Okay, thank you for that, Elvis. And that's all the time we have for Jarlin and the Knowledge House. But Jarlin, thank you for presenting to us. And she gave her email and information. If you're interested in learning more, you can visit the Knowledge House and, you know, on social and their website. Thank you, Jarlin.
Thank you.
The next group presenting is Exodus Transitional Community and Vincent Thomas. He's the program director of Exodus Transitional Community. They are also a New York-based group, and Vincent is joining us from the leadership conference he's at, and I'm happy you took the time to show up for us and take it away.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to the Hispanic Federation. I also want to thank everybody that was able to join today. Just want to let everyone know that I'm in the car on shared mobile hotspot, so I may be having some technical issues. But I did want to make sure to join and really kind of share with everyone how impactful the Hispanic Federation's grant for digital skills has. One of the things that makes Exodus very unique is our founder really wants to give our participants opportunities that they wouldn't always get in the community, in just the landscape of employment. And this particular grant really helped us to not only upskill our participants and our staff, but to really position them to get other opportunities in the tech field or jobs that really kind of harnessed these digital skills. So just to kind of get started, I wanted to kind of talk about Exodus, the founding of it, as well as how we kind of got started in reentry. So Exodus started in '99. Our founder, Julio Medina, kind of came up with the idea for Exodus while he was incarcerated. And then coming out into the community, one of the first things he thought was, I want to make a place that could really give opportunities for everyone, regardless of their criminal justice past history or any kind of justice impact that would prevent them from opportunities that they would normally get. So our mission statement says, with a firm belief in human resilience, Exodus Transitional Community delivers innovative programming tailored to adults and youth affected by the justice system, and advocates for a society in which all can achieve social, economic, and spiritual well-being. It's really important for us that when we're servicing participants, it goes way beyond just, hey, sign up for the program. Like, we really make sure that we're taking care of all of their needs. So one of the first things we always do when somebody comes in is, have you eaten? Do you have a place to sleep? I think some of these things kind of get lost in the shuffle of just managing programs. So we want to be really authentic and meet participants where they are when they come through the door, and really kind of give them that warm welcome that they need to try to not only succeed in life, but if they want to excel in employment or educational opportunities, they really need that support from us. Next slide.
Hey, Vincent, we lost you there for a second. Can you hear us?
I'm not doing that.
Can you hear us now?
So, okay, cool. Why was Exodus founded? One of the biggest bases for the founding of Exodus was that no one is defined by the worst moment in their life. We have participants that have served very long incarcerations. We have other participants that are trying to prevent themselves from being incarcerated. And one of the keys to that is to give everyone a level playing field and not really hold them to one particular mistake that kind of derailed their trajectory. We always go from this strengths-based perspective of, hey, anyone can kind of do the best that they can if we give them the opportunity to. So that's really why Julio really wanted Exodus to be a place that people can kind of go and get that opportunity. Next slide. So I just kind of wanted to talk about why, in terms of upskilling, why CBOs are kind of vital to that whole process. Especially in the East Harlem community, Exodus is seen as a vital part of not only employment, but just a kind of a place where you can go, be yourself, be accepted, have community when you might not be able to find that out in your actual community. We offer the chance for you to be not the defined version of yourself, but what you want to be. And one of the biggest reasons that I'm going to kind of touch on how we've been one of the unique stories in the city that has kind of drastically grown over the pandemic. And there's a lot of factors that kind of go into that. But one of the big things was that at the heart of it, we still kind of stay true to our roots and our idea that we're going to approach every person as not the finished product, but they always have potential. Next slide. Oh, so I started off by thanking the Hispanic Federation, but just kind of talking briefly about some of our prior work with the Hispanic Federation. We collaborated with them post Hurricane Maria to try to really help the citizens of Puerto Rico deal with the devastation, as well as try to help them kind of rebuild in a lot of ways. We also bolster a lot of our staff's training through Hispanic Federation training opportunities, which we always are thankful for, and they've been really generous with their resources as far as that. And with the digital skills program, I think one of the biggest things that the digital skills program for us, and I think this kind of really frames for everyone why our program is very unique. The vast majority of the participants that we service are justice impacted. And there's a key distinction to our population in that participants aren't just not actively trying to learn digital skills because they don't want to. It's because they literally don't have access to it. Whether it's jail or prison, participants don't have access to be able to even see a cell phone. We have participants that to have someone come out into the community and the first thing is, here's a cell phone, but you don't know how to use it, or know about understanding that we're meeting our participants where they are. They're coming out into the community, they're adjusting back to everyday life, and then it's, in some instances, they're coming back to the future. It really allowed us to kind of bolster an area that we hadn't had the opportunity to focus on. And we really appreciated the fact that this grant allowed us to kind of get some resources as well as have dedicated facilitation just around digital skills. Next slide. Okay, so where do we focus most of our attention when it comes to our programming? So we have programs specifically for adult reentry and youth programs, and we're currently also expanding to mental health with some of our new programming that's coming out later this summer, as well as some expanded services in our wellness program, which offers outpatient substance use treatment. We also provide on-site GED instruction, and we are very much involved in a specific program in the Harlem community that it focuses on family reunification. One of the big things for us is we have an Exodus contract, and it focuses on not just goals around getting a job or going to school, but really about community engagement, establishing support networks, and really being a well-rounded person spiritually so that you can be the best self that you want to be. Next slide. So just some really quick highlights about our digital skills program. We wanted to make sure that our program fit our population, which is why a lot of the focus of our curriculum is on the basics. These, for the most part, these are participants that have little to no digital experience. So we wanted to make sure that not only could they use a tablet or a laptop, but they knew how to get to Google, they knew how to make a Gmail, they knew how to attach a file to an email, or to save their resume in Google Docs so that they can access it for the future. And we were able to have really significant success in our digital skills program because we had a 60% job placement rate. And one of the great things about Exodus is that the vast majority of the participants that we hire internally have gone through our digital skills program as well. And when I talk about our hotel operations that kind of exploded during COVID, probably about 75% of those participants, those staff, were former participants that participated in our digital skills curriculum. Next slide. So, job development. One of the things that we really make sure to do when people get jobs is not only making sure that they get the job, but positioning them in a way so that they can keep the job. So making sure that participants have incentives to get to and from work, making sure that they have all the necessary stuff for the job. So whether it's like equipment or if they need new clothes, we want to make sure that participants are treated with the level of respect that they deserve in order to be successful in life. And in addition to that, we offer a lot of wraparound services that go beyond just the initial interaction. So we offer 1 year of case management in our adult reentry programs that enables participants to kind of have those hiccups which will almost always happen for them, and they need somebody to support them or to check in to make sure that what's happening for them is what they need to have happen. So we also provide housing assistance, which included our emergency hotel operations during COVID, but that also encompasses our family reunification program. We started with a very robust food equity program in our East Harlem sites and also our upstate sites in Poughkeepsie, where we were providing food boxes to the community. I think one of the big things for us is focusing on those intangibles, which are food and shelter, and making sure that somebody can live before we expect so much more from them. And food equity is a big part of, especially in our East Harlem location. We also offer clothing donations. We do youth support programming with a focus on trauma-informed care, which is a big piece of it. A lot of our communities are significantly impacted by trauma, and a lot of it is stigmatized. So we want to normalize that as something that we can really support them in and kind of help them navigate doing well in life, but also dealing with some of those problems that they maybe wanted to forget about. Next slide. So the pandemic was a very significant time of growth for Exodus. Some of you saw on the first slide that we started in 99. When we started in 1999, it was a one-room office in a part of a church. And now we have over 13 locations in New York State. Primarily in the New York City area, we have 5 locations in Harlem. We have 4, which is going to soon be 6 remote hotel locations. And then we're going to have and then we have our 2 upstate sites in Newburgh and Poughkeepsie. And adjusting to the pandemic initially was very difficult for us. We've almost always had in-person programming, and navigating the idea of having remote programming that was primarily digital with staff and participants that are limited in their digital capacity was difficult. One of the big things that we had to do was outfit our staff with the necessary equipment, so laptops, tablets, making sure that they had webcams for stuff like this, so that we could have meetings and trainings and do presentations virtually. And it really, I don't want to say kind of revitalize the program. It really kind of just enabled us to just extend our capabilities. I think one of the big things for us with our hotel operations was it was very emergency, and we were asked by the city, hey, can you guys go? And we just went. I think that was one of the biggest things for us, is the availability and the willingness to do what typically other organizations weren't prepared to or ready to do, which was actually be in person during a pandemic. I think that was one of the big things that really helped us kind of propel us into this different space that we're in right now. Next slide.
Hey, yeah, Vincent, just want to remind you to keep in mind that we do have another group that's should be coming soon, but it's okay. No. Just
I'll be super quick. Okay. Yeah. If you could, you know what? I'm just going to talk really briefly about some of the upcoming things that we have for Exodus over the next year. So like I said, we have the Center for Trauma Innovation, which is a very unique space. It's the first of its kind. This is a center that's going to offer services to a lot more than just the typical population that we've served. So beyond just justice impacted individuals and youth, we're also going to be servicing the immigrant population and the LGBTQAI plus GNC population. It's going to be offering mental health support as well as um, some very innovative trauma informed care support services. We're going to be doing some wellness classes. We're going to be doing individual therapy, and then potentially even some opportunities for participants to be able to be self-employed. So maybe screen printing and stuff like that. We are also we actually just started our Exodus Base initiative, which is going to be on Rikers. We're going to be providing facilitation on island. We're actually also looking into what, if anything, is possible in the way of digital capacity building. And that would be a really great way for us to kind of just extend this program, not just to community based, but beyond that, if it's something that we can do. Like I said, we have 2 new emergency hotels that are opening up, and we offer emergency assistance for participants that are released from Rikers to be able to have shelter, but to also get all their necessary services. So whether it's document replacement, food, clothing, helping them reconnect with their families, I think that's all part of it. And just finally, about the digital divide, I think one of the big things in terms of what I think is going to help with shrinking this digital divide is, or closing that gap, is access and cultural competency when it comes to training. We need to have, like, right now I'm in a McDonald's parking lot to get Wi-Fi. We have a lot of participants that have to deal with their digital divide that way. They don't have access to stable internet at home. They don't have equipment. And then on top of that, they don't necessarily speak the same language. A lot of our participants have experienced marginalization, and the lack of digital access is just one of those things. I think we really need to make sure that everyone gets access to what they need to be able to excel in this field, and to also have teachers that speak their language. Sorry I went over, but I really want to thank the Hispanic Federation for this opportunity, and thank you all for sticking around, even though I ran a little over.
Oh, thank you for that, Vincent. And if you have questions for Vincent, just put them in the chat, and we'll send them to him, and he'll make sure we can answer them. We're going to switch gears to the West Coast, actually, and we're going to have Monument Impact Executive Director Deborah and Program Director Elba are going to now present on Monument Impact and the work that they've been doing in Concord, California. Correct? Yes?
Thank you.
Yep, take it away.
Thanks so much, Peter, and many thanks to the Hispanic Federation. Not only has their support been really important for our technology program, especially our advanced Caminos class, which you'll hear about in a minute, but it actually, during the pandemic, gave us a little bit of breathing to be able to start the county's first and largest undocumented. What we saw was just how dramatically COVID hit the Latinx community, both in terms of job loss and COVID infections. Next slide. Monument Impact was founded 20 years ago as an immigrant justice organization with roots in a day labor program. At that time, day laborers would hang out on street corners in what's known in Concord as a monument corridor. And the county didn't like it, and they were getting complaints, and there were no resources for the Latinx community. So we opened a day labor program that, based on the needs of the women and men in that program, eventually evolved into a technology program. And over the years, we now have 3 primary program areas. In addition to workforce development, we also have a healthy communities program, which offers culturally appropriate mental health and physical health programs. We also have a large community engagement program because we think civic engagement is vitally important in our county in order to see that immigrants and refugees have a voice in decisions that impact their families. Since 2006, when we started our digital literacy program, we've served over 3,000 individuals. Our mission is to ensure that immigrants, refugees, and low-income residents in Concord and surrounding communities have the voice, tools, and relationships necessary to have an equitable share of the social and economic wealth in our region. We have rapidly grown over the last several years, and about 50% of the folks we serve don't actually live in Concord anymore. They've been displaced because of the Bay Area's extraordinarily traumatic housing crisis. So half of the folks that we serve are in East Contra Costa County. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. I am Elba Velasquez, and I am delighted to share a little bit of our work at Monument Impact. As Deborah mentioned, our technology program started back in 2006. And this was because women, part of the day labor program, wanted to improve their skills. They requested to get some training on how to use a computer, basic skills. So we initiated with a very small group in a very small classroom and only with 6 computers, serving no more than 30 to 40 students per year. Here you can see a flyer from 2006. And I have to add that actually in 2008, I joined as a technology student and volunteer. And that's how I started with Monument Impact. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Hi, yeah, Elba, just mentioning that some people are mentioning they can't hear you well.
Really? Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get a little closer here. So nowadays, our Technology for Success program has evolved and is completely adapted to support community members in the process of learning new skills and help them advance in today's economy. The process of coming to what we are now actually has been a process of listening to what the community wants and needs. So paying attention to their voices. Next slide, please. Now, our participants are actually very hardworking individuals. They come to us with 0 computer skills, and they are mostly single parents with many barriers: language, transportation, financial, and very minimal formal education. With all their many responsibilities, they still juggle to separate a little bit of time to focus on their self-improvement. Next slide, please. Next, thank you. Now, when our goal is that our participants have a clear vision of their goals. So we have 4 specific areas that we want them to focus on, either looking for a job, seeking for a promotion, wanting to improve their skills to manage their family business, or creating a pathway to higher education. Some of our participants come to us with a clear goal, but in some cases, motivation additional case management is what makes the difference in their lives. Next slide, please. Now,
Elba, they're having a hard time hearing you. Do you want me to do this slide?
Yeah, sure.
So our programs, we start at the very beginning with an introduction to computers. These are folks who've never used a computer at home before and maybe not even have one at their home. We then move into a beginning class, which offers skills in Windows operating system, file management, login, email, etc. Moving then into intermediate classes where we really start to dig into Microsoft Office skills, including Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. This last year, we offered an intro to Chromebooks because that's what school districts were providing to students for online learning, and we partnered with a school district because parents just didn't know how to use the tool. And finally, Caminos is our advanced class, and it includes English as a second language. We should note that our classes are offered in Spanish, some in Farsi for the Afghan community, but using English terminology. So as students move through this trajectory of classes, they're getting more English through the terminology of the programs they're using into finally taking a full-blown ESL class. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, sorry. No, go back. I'm sorry. Sorry, can you go back, Peter? Thank you. So as I mentioned, the support of Hispanic Federation was so important during COVID. The timing was perfect. We ended up redesigning all the curriculum in order for folks to meet online as opposed to our computer lab. And how that curriculum was redesigned was actually influenced by many conversations with business owners and former participants in terms of the jobs that were going to be available and what participants felt they needed to move their skill and job searches forward. We, of course, like everyone else, adopted Zoom. Zoom is not an easy tool for people to use who are working off of a smartphone only. So we had to kind of really get people started on computers. We did loaners. We did one-on-one Facebook, not Facebook, but some Facebook trainings, right? And some FaceTime trainings so that people could figure out how to turn on a computer and use a mouse and other tools. And as I mentioned before, we completely revamped Caminos, as we formerly called this career track, by adding QuickBooks and bookkeeping, because this was what we were hearing from business in terms of what they needed for employees. The new Chromebooks course, and we had to really strategize techniques to address the barriers that first-time computers had, but that we couldn't do in person, which is what we always do, is in person. Next slide. Elba, do you want to get closer to your mic?
Yeah, I'll give it a try. So Caminos is actually our updated, refreshed, advanced class. And it's actually the only one available in the area in this format. It is a very intense, over 200-hour career track program. And students need to have an intermediate computer skill level to join this class. And we are different from any other institution. Monument Impact does not require a work permit or a certain English level to join this class for our participants. We meet people right where they are at, and we understand that there's always multiple pathways to self-sufficiency. So people might be taking this class because they want to be able to manage their business better. They learn the most frequently used programs in an office setting, QuickBooks, bookkeeping, ESL, and professional development. Under professional development, people learn how to develop their resume, how to go for an interview, how to we teach them job search techniques. We even do mock interviews with them. And they also develop a 40-hour capstone project with local businesses. So we connect with small business owners that don't have any administration system, and our students apply what they have learned, developing a business solution for that business. Under the quality control of our instructors, they also teach the business owners how to use that specific business solution they created. Our graduation rate is at least 95%, and 75% of our participants do report a new job or an income increase post-graduation. Now, the average income they are making is between $19 and $20 per hour. Next slide, please.
So there's sort of three areas that I think have been key to Caminos' success, as well as our other programs as well, which is partnering, relational, and accountability. Next slide. Partnerships are actually, it's a core value of Monument Impact. We partner with the community. We frequently are polling the community to find out what their job needs are, what the skill levels that they have, and what some of the wraparound services they may need. Not only may we be able to funnel someone who is in a career track or a Caminos program into, say, our mental health program, or outsource, we do resource referrals to other community-based organizations. What the community needs is very important in terms of the programs that we offer. We partner with organizations. A few examples is we partner with the school district to teach their parents of children doing online learning, how to use Chromebooks and how to support their kids during their education, how to deal with Wi-Fi and other digital technique. It's digital divide tools, and I'll say something about that in a minute. And we also partner with employers. I want to say that we all, I think what I appreciate about the two previous presentations is just how critical it is to overcome a digital divide. And it's really sad that even today in 2021, there is such a large digital divide. But what we discovered in Contra Costa County, which is in the East Bay, is that digital divide really was uncovered